kind attention and permission, I have the honor of presenting to you one of the most remarkable men in the world.
One of the hits of the season is a theatrical version of Alfred Hitchcock's 1935 vintage classic, The 39 Steps.
Clear out, Henry. They'll get you next.
It's been re-realized on stage.
Clear out, Henry. They will get you next.
We wanted to talk about it with Professor Jerry Carlson, the Professor of Critical Studies at the City University of New York. Jerry, welcome to Theater Talk.
Thanks.
So now to The 39 Steps.
Yes, ma'am.
This is, you told me, one of your favorite films.
In fact, it's a film that I fell in love with when I saw it in high school. It's one of those movies I think that many people have fallen in love with, that you have the sense of everything works here. Somehow everything is right about it. This is one of the movies that defines what the movies are in some kind of way.
What did you think of the roundabout stage version of it?
I thought the roundabout stage version was, first of all, just terrific. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very interesting because it is, first of all, it's not a parody. People should understand that.
Right.
It's an homage to, you know, a much admired object, but a much admired object that's over 75 years old now. And so it has all these period features to it. I mean, the UK, the London of the 21st century is not the Tweedy land of Hitchcock's 1935.
And you also have the music hall London too. I mean, the music hall is sort of key to the movie and, of course, to the stage version too. The big scenes take place in the music hall.
Well, absolutely on the mark, Michael, because one of the things that people think of when they think of Hitchcock is they always think, well, Hitchcock is the master filmmaker. Certainly, no question about it, a genius at it. But he was always somebody who was interested, when you might call this ongoing family dialogue between theater and film. And like all family dialogues, sometimes it's an argument and sometimes it's a discourse of love and appreciation. And in, I think the original film, if people have a chance to see it or review it, and by the way, I'd like to say that recently it was digitally restored, and so there's just this magnificent DVD of the 39 Steps that means you see it the way Hitchcock really filmed it, with that kind of clarity. It's a movie in which, as you said, it begins and ends in a music hall, but then the whole question of performance is threaded throughout the film. Richard Hannay, who is the, you know, the uber Hitchcockian hero, you could say, because he's the poor, innocent guy trapped between the police and the bad guys on the run.
The brilliant Robert Donnet, right?
Absolutely. Whom I think, is both of you probably know, has this incredible presence on camera. And he's the everyman that becomes a hero. And in fact, as everyone recounts, he actually had very, very fragile health, was a man who died very young. He had lung difficulties, and off camera, people were, worried as to whether or not he could come on camera or not. And then on camera, he becomes every boy. He sparkles, and he's every boy's hero. Yeah, I'm going to be a guy like that when I grow up. And I have to give wonderful credit, I think, to this theatrical production, because it is sort of at the same time lovingly mocking of the notion of the British stiff upper lip, hero, and at the same time, you want to watch him. You don't reject him. In fact, you want to follow.
No, he's personable and handsome
and we should say, for people who haven't seen the show, that it's just a cast of four, but the four people play all the different characters in the movie, and they do these fast switching around and
practically no sets, and yet they look at most of the shots. They have most of the shots in there, and say, how can we make this? How can we show the magic of this moment with a minimal theater experience?
Where was Hitchcock in his career when he made this movie?
Interesting question. He was well-known director. I mean, insofar as directors were known. Again, that's his whole thing. Directors had a different kind of status.
Hitchcock was kind of the first star director, right? When he eventually...
And knew that, and knew how to build that kind of thing. He was a young man, not only of great artistry and skill, but of great curiosity. So he had been to Germany studying how the Germans were making films. He, like many people, was very interested in everything that was happening in world film culture in the 20s, which is just an extraordinarily creative period in film. And he's one of the guys who pulls it all together. And he pulls it all together in a film like The 39 Steps. Now, if we had a couple hours here, I could run you a bunch of clips from Soviet films and from German films and show you how he sort of puts it all together here. This is a kind of encyclopedia of what you can do with certain kinds of film techniques up until 1935.
And all in about 85 minutes, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, and one of the reasons this film and the theater production, you know, which takes this from the film, are so palatable to us is because of its pacing. It's just this notion. It moves.
Absolutely,
you know, it's a train. The train leaves the station, and the train keeps moving.
So, and 39 Steps took him to Hollywood, right?
It's one of the films that took all of a sudden he became not just a gifted contract director, because remember, directors were thought of as contract professionals. It's work for hire, and you do a better or a lesser job, but it's really the studios or the producers who are this. And it began to emerge, and of course emerged that he was somebody that was more than that. Now remember, if anybody would complain, and they shouldn't, but they would complain, well, why would you take Hitchcock and put him on the stage? You know, he was so cinematic. Hitchcock himself in his career was someone who kept crossing media, because he shocked his colleagues in the 1950s, because here he is a major film director by anybody's standards, and he starts dabbling in this vulgar thing called television. So why would a master like that, and why would he be interested in making little weekly things? But of course he knew that you're inspired by and enriched by contact with as many media as possible. I would imagine, if he could magically come back from the big studio in the sky, he would probably be figuring out a way to make the best thriller for your iPod right now.
Right, exactly.
What are the 39 steps? Come on!